Can everyone hear me? What about now? Back of the room? Good. Excellent. I want happy customers all the way around. Okay. So thank you very much for coming, for wasting your Friday night on me. First of all, I'm going to start off with a few sort of little caveats. This talk is not going to be a sequence of conspiracy theories one after the other. I'm not going to talk about aliens, Loch Ness Monster, or Bigfoot. Okay. Where I do talk about conspiracy theories, it's really just to make a general point. Really, the aim of the talk is to talk about why I got into it, who I am, my general observations of conspiracy theories, and what my hopes are for the direction of the field. So who am I? Well, I'm just like you. I'm just interested in the world around me. I'm interested in finding answers. And I'm very much driven by a lot of the events that have happened in recent years. So the big events, 9/11, 7/7, the Gulf War. In many cases, these events happened, and I'm not so sure that the answers or the reasons we were given, well, they certainly didn't satisfy my thirst for information. That kind of took a back step for a few years when I was an undergraduate, and then in 2008, obviously the financial crisis reared its ugly head. And again, all of the answers that we got were simply kind of half-baked. The solutions we have are really not permanent solutions in any kind of measure, and the underlying problems have not been solved. Well, that, in my view anyway. So again, it kind of re-sparked my need to know more answers, and hence my interest in this kind of area. But I would say that really I'm more interested in conspiracies now as a sociological phenomenon, really. I don't necessarily delve into conspiracy theories every day of the week. It's more conspiracy theories as a phenomenon in themselves. Though in my current role as a publisher, I do get opportunities to travel quite a bit. And where I do, I usually take the opportunity to go to certain locations. So anybody know where this is? Dallas, Texas, indeed. There's a Dealey Plaza. So that little X down there, that's basically the first headshot to President Kennedy on the convoy. And as you go down Dealey Plaza, just off camera, there's the fatal headshot. So obviously, you know, when I got an afternoon off, I was running around Dealey Plaza with my umbrella, pointing in all directions, trying to work out where the lone gunman was. But I think all the American tourists thought I was a crazy, crazy guy. Before we go any further, though, I think we should pause for a second. My experience in any kind of conversation or debate is it very easily turns into an argument. And most of the time, that argument's based on nothing more than misunderstanding. So before yes, I know, that's for the ladies in the room, really. Some of the guys too, some of the guys. So before we go any more, I really want to sort of tighten up terminology. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to do the cliche thing. I'm going to jump into the dictionary. And I'm going to disappoint the Americans in the room because I'm going to use the Oxford English Dictionary. I didn't use Webster for this. Sorry, Webster's substandard. Okay, conspiracy. What is a conspiracy? A combination of persons for an evil or unlawful purpose, an agreement between two or more persons to do something criminal, illegal, or reprehensible, especially in relation to treason, sedition, or murder. A plot, also a conspiracy to silence. Well, I think that's a pretty good definition to go with in the first instance. I'm not quite sure what reprehensible means. It's pretty subjective, but I mean, I think in terms of a definition, it's pretty tight. So then we jump to conspiracy theory, an actual compound of that, and then the theory that an event or phenomenon occurs as a result of conspiracy between interested parties, specifically the belief that some covert or influential agency, typically political in motivation and oppressive intent, is responsible, well, you get the rest of it, okay? I'm not going to say the whole thing. I'm not so happy with this second definition, because in this definition, it kind of paints conspiracy theory into a box. It kind of says that if you have a conspiracy theory, it has to always involve a conspiracy. All the actors have to know exactly what they're doing. They all have to be communicating with each other, and they all have to be in control all the way through the process. And we know in real life that just isn't the case. Most of the time, the players hardly know each other. Maybe they have overlapping interests, but really they're not motivated by... They're not sitting in a hollowed-out volcano with a cat on their lap. Let's put it like that, okay? So I'm going to dump conspiracy theory. For the rest of my talk, if I do use conspiracy theory, it really will be just as a derogatory term like the rest of you mean it, okay? I'm going to now jump to alternative theory, okay? That's my preferred terminology, okay? And that's really a wider term. It's really the partial or full theory that an event or phenomenon occurs as a result of collusions between interested parties. The belief that some combination of interested and influential individuals or agencies are responsible for either initiating or attempting to suppress. So it's a wider, it allows more scope, it's more realistic. And also, it allows for partial or full theory. Indeed, I've rarely come across anybody that claims to know the full story from beginning to end, so that the first definition just didn't add up. So, I mean, let's get away from dictionary definitions. Really, this is how you view conspiracy theories. Be honest with yourselves. When you saw this talk advertised and you heard I was coming up, you thought, he's a crank. This is the kind of stuff he believes, right? Or this is what he sees in the morning when he's eating his cornflakes, right? This is what you think, right, of me. I'm going to try and change your mind about this, okay? I'm going to try and convince you that, far from being like this, most alternative theories, okay, there's a truer picture that you can sort of take away. Okay, maybe that's not the whole truth. Okay, let's dump that. It's true there are some cranky conspiracy theories out there. I am using conspiracy theory, by the way, now, because this is really crazy. I mean, some of the stuff, if you go on there's some crazy stuff on the internet, but if you go there, so one conspiracy theory has it that Hitler didn't die in 1945. He went down to the South Pole and built an Antarctic base. There are variations on this conspiracy theory. Some believe that in a hollow Earth variety, so they believe the Earth is hollow, and others just believe in a Nazi Antarctic base. But either way, they both agree that's the front door, apparently. Not so sure about that, or this other crazy one, which is obviously, this is one that David Icke dreamt up, that basically the whole world is run by pan-dimensional shape-shifting reptiles. Okay, and you go on the websites and they say, look, see, there's the Queen, it's her reptile skin coming through a rubber mask. There's George Bush Sr.'s reptile eyes poking out. And this is obviously how Bill Clinton's been modified. Even Beyonce's a reptile, apparently, in this. This is just a Gorn I stole off of Star Trek, the original series, so this isn't part of the conspiracy. But I thought he looked good there, right? He looked good. So a mirror really on the whole view of this, on a contemporary view, is really how the media portrays. It's a mirror on the way we portray. Okay, so I always think Hollywood is a good place to start. And really in Hollywood, all conspiracy movies follow one plot line, right? Beginning of the movie, we have a lone crazy survivor. He's survived some kind of like alien experiment, some kind of assassination plot, something like that. He's derided, ridiculed, he has bad personal hygiene, no girlfriend, that kind of thing, okay? Halfway through the movie, UFO turns up, government agents, whatever. And suddenly, he's the hero. He saves the day, he gets the girl, he gets the tea and medals, okay? That's the typical Hollywood plot line. And if you really look at all the Hollywood movies, they're pretty much the same. They all follow it. I mean, basically the labels are different and the names are different, but like 50% of the movie is crank and crackpot, and the other half of the movie is, oh yes, there really is a secret organization, that stamps alien passports, and you weren't crazy after all. The truth, in terms of the movies, that's the treatment. But what about in the mainstream media, in the actual regular news media? Well, I'm afraid it's not such a happy ending in there. If we look at the way the press very often treats alternative theorists, when they do invite them on their show, it's usually just to set them up to sort of pull them down again. So there's a few sort of notable examples. So this is, if you're American, you'll know Bill O'Reilly, won't you? No? Bill O'Reilly? Anybody want to cheer for him? Not particularly, no, I wouldn't want to cheer for him. So here he is, he's shouting down the son of a 9/11 victim who was asking questions. He said, your father would be ashamed of you. Here is Bill Maher slapping down Glenn Greenwald, the man who actually brought the Ed Snowden case out of the shadows. And this is sort of Andrew Neil, obviously, slapping down his guest. Very often these guys are just really, as I said, straw men. They're brought on to drag them down, to create an idea of impartiality where there really is none. The mainstream is very dismissive of alternative theories. So that's really the general perception of alternative theories, but I want to get down to the DNA. I want to get down to the what a conspiracy theory is, what it isn't not. And I basically want to make a couple of observations. First, conspiracy theories revolve around power. That's the commonality. It's always power, right? If there's no power involved, there's no story, okay? So generally, it centers, most conspiracy theories, traditional power structures, the Vatican, the Federal Reserve, just, tick the box, pick the power structure, you'll find at least 10 alternative theories about those organizations, whether they're true or not. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, the exception being that the actor is powerful, but the event is completely insignificant. So, obviously, there's Bill with his new intern, and obviously things happened, which I won't go into. He got impeached in 1998, and then he got exonerated by the Congress, gave him a free waiver. But to be honest with you, I've got new evidence. Look, he's burning the evidence there, so he's quite clearly guilty. So that's one exception, and obviously the other exceptions, very, very rare, because I say it's a general rule, but there's exceptions, is the conspiracy theories that don't involve power at all. There are a few exceptions, okay? So number one, that Elvis is alive, and that Paul McCartney is dead. So basically, those are doing the rounds. Maybe they should switch them and they get a better result. Okay, so that's really and part of it is alternative theories reflect the current concerns of society. Now, this seems to be an obvious statement to some of you, but really, my idea is that alternative theories are living organisms. They have to be nourished and they have to be fed, and their nourishment is attention, it's brain power, it's time spent working on this stuff. And really, if you look at it, there's a few sort of longer-lasting conspiracy theories, but most of them die quite a quick death because they drop out of the current news. So obviously, if we rewind back in time, what was the current event? If we look in the 1950s, we obviously have the Red Scare, communism and spread of socialism, and indeed there were some real cases. You have obviously the Rosens who they were executed in the early 50s for giving atom bomb secrets to the Russians, or you have the Cambridge spy ring. Again, they spent 10 years passing intelligence to the Russians before they were found out. But certainly, however serious this was, it fed into a whole mindset of McCarthyism, of fiction, of reaction to politicians that really lasted way into the 1960s. And the conspiracy theories of the time really show this. If we fast forward, really, to current day, really, what are the things that concern us? Globalization, corporatization. We're always talking about things like Monsanto and privatization of security. These are all concerns that are current now, and that's what the bulk of the conspiracy theories are. Or the ongoing war on terror, which seems to basically never end. It seems to be going on and on and on. And obviously as the news media shifts on, the attention of the alternative theorists, slip of the tongue, moves on with it. So, for instance, example at the moment, it's the Ukraine, the recent revolution, the ongoing civil war, or the recent downing of the flight that took off from this very city. My prediction actually for this is unfortunately not very happy. I do honestly think that what we're seeing in the Ukraine is the start of a major confrontation between Russia as it tries to re-establish itself, and America wants to slap it back down again. So I think really what you're seeing in Ukraine is going to be repeated all the way across the Caucasus and the borders of the former Soviet Union. So that's my prediction for the next 10 years. But anyway, that's not so important. Okay, so some more general false ideas about alternative theories, that basically they're the products of outsiders and loners and general cranks. Okay, I'm going to do a little experiment because I was told I had to do some audience participation here. Okay, I'm going to ask for some hands. Okay, who believes in the official US government version of 9/11? Hands up. Dear oh dear. Okay, fair enough. Okay, who? What's the official US government version? Okay, the official US government version is that 19 hijackers armed with box cutters and penknives managed to hijack 4 planes, bypass a multi-billion-dollar defense system, and crash them into 3 targets, 1 failed. Are you all astronomers? I always knew you weren't on this planet. Oh my God. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that kind of tells me all about the astronomy department, doesn't it? Okay. Okay. Who believes that 9/11 that the U.S. government had some ideas, but they just screwed up on the job and they just tried to cover themselves? Okay. Who believes that the US government was behind it? Okay, who doesn't have an opinion? Well, that doesn't compute, because a lot of you don't even have an opinion, apparently. I'm talking to an empty room. Okay, well, I really asked for that because I want to make the point that you're all you're alternative theorists, okay? If you've had a political conversation and you've expressed an opinion, you're an alternative theorist. Well, you don't have to have like a certificate for it. That just makes you an alternative theorist. Okay. Another misconception that the alternative theories are the result of the rise of the internet. Okay, I want to put this to bed because alternative theories are as old as civilization. Okay, I didn't have time to trawl all the way back through history, but certainly a couple of examples. We can go back to 1798. Okay, so this guy is John Robertson, who was a physicist in the late 18th century Scotland, and he came up with a whole pamphlet in 1798 saying that the world was being run behind the scenes by the Illuminati and Freemasonry. Okay, so that's 200 years ago, okay, 220 years ago or whatever. If we fast forward a century, we get the Protocols of the Elder Rosine, which is a very anti-Semitic pamphlet written by a guy called Sergei Nerov. Okay, so this textbook causes a lot of obviously anti-Semitism within the Russian Empire. As a matter of record, it actually became a standard textbook in Nazi Germany 40 years later in schools. And Henry Ford actually paid, I think he paid for about 500,000 copies of this thing to be printed and distributed within. Henry Ford was a known anti-Semite, so this book caused a lot of problems. But certainly, it shows that conspiracy theories are as old as civilization. As long as there's been power, there's been alternative theories keep jumping in. What the information age did do was really just speed up the process. It's a bit like air travel basically speeds up the rate of spread and mutation of diseases around the world. We get a chicken virus in Hong Kong and it's in Brussels the next day, kind of thing. And obviously, it also gives an alternative outlet to challenge mainstream media domination. Okay, I'm going to have to skip a few slides. Okay, so where do I think the origin of alternative theories are? Well, I think that the core origin of them are distrust in power structures. I honestly think there's numerous examples. So, for instance, I'm going to pick one from the US again. So this is Fast and Furious. Okay, it's not the movie, the crap movie which equals Vin Diesel's retirement plan. This is Eric Holder, who's the Attorney General of the United States. He authorized an operation where they basically got criminals to buy machine guns, assault rifles, military hardware, and then sell it onto the Mexican drug cartels on the understanding they would track the weapons, get them back, and arrest the bad guys. Unfortunately, it didn't go to plan. Okay, they didn't do their job properly, and they ended up losing a lot of police officers and a lot of Mexican civilians along the way. This guy is still in his job. Yeah, he got fired today. Hey! Round of applause. My God, well, you've just undermined my whole argument of no accountability, But I'm glad to hear it. Okay. But that's one example. Distrust of government. Loss of confidence in independent institutions, like for example, the media. We're seeing very often the media literally in bed with government. They're literally turning up to the press conference and writing down what the president says and just repeating ad verbatim. Or the embedding of journalists in war zones, literally just repetition of what they've heard. There's no scrutiny going on, okay? And we're seeing a massively more professional political class who actually hire guys from the press to act as their press agent. So this guy in the UK, Andy Coulson, he's now in prison, but he worked for my Prime Minister, and he's gone to prison in connection with hacking phones, basically. So they were hacking into the phones of relatives of murder victims, of terrorism victims, to get information for a scoop. So he's now doing jail time, but he's the kind of people that governments are now employing in their press offices. Okay, an increased perception may be that the normal mechanisms are not really working. The voter turnout's going down. We see things like Occupy Wall Street, which was a lead in this direction, this movement. It didn't really have an aim or a direction. It was just lots of angry people on the street, frustrated, but not knowing really not what to do. So really, I want to skip over and talk about what I think alternative theories are good for. But in order to do that, I think first of all you need to categorize them. Okay, so hence the spaghetti western poster. Okay, so basically let's look at a few. So we've got the good. Okay, so this is an example of a good alternative theory. It's good because it never really got the chance to have a mass following. It never really got the people that kind of knew about it were the people who knew something about it, and therefore there was not too much speculation. So just to fill you in, this is the Gulf of Tonkin incident. This was 1964. So this warship sails up to the North Vietnamese coast. Apparently the North Vietnamese attack it, but not really. Johnson goes to the Senate, gets this piece of paper signed, and the rest of history you know. The Vietnam War happened. And Robert McNamara, the Defense Secretary in 2001, said, this didn't happen. It didn't happen. We made it up. Johnson himself said, I think they must have been firing at whales or something. I don't know what they were firing at. Okay, but that's the whole Vietnam War based upon a little fib. The alternative theory on that was very accurate, I think, because the people in the know were the ones that sort of dealt with it. One that isn't so good is obviously 9/11. 9/11 really happened in the information age when a lot of people had access to partial information and were able to express half-baked views. So I mean, if you obviously go on 9/11, there's thousands of variations. Controlled demolition. There we go. There's the explosives going off in the building, or indeed this plane was remote controlled. There weren't passengers on it. The passengers were taken off, or the passengers never existed. They were actors. This guy's saying, "Where are the plane parts here?" It's just basic myths that were never really challenged in the story that still continue. I mean, one example is I always keep hearing the towers were in free fall. Well, if the towers were in free fall, why are pieces of junk passing the tower on collapse? Basic physics. This is like Galileo. This is 400-year-old physics that a school child would know, and it still persists in the whole 9/11 myth. So we get on to the ugly. I'll quickly skip over this. This is Andrew Wakefield, who created a bit of a panic. He linked the MMR vaccine to autism. In the late 90s, he created a massive dip in vaccination rates, and he created an increase in measles and mumps outbreaks amongst children. So I won't spend too much time, but Wakefield really overextended himself. He didn't declare conflicts of interest, and he turned himself into a bit of a social media campaigner rather than a scientist. But certainly that was full of speculation, so that's kind of ugly. My argument, I'm making these points because really it doesn't serve us at all. When alternative theories go bad, what happens is we're left with nowhere to go. When we want to challenge authority, the authorities merely say, well, you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist, you get lumped in. So basically, we need to clean this up if we want to challenge authority. Okay. So I'm happy to say this is kind of, I'm nearly at the end. I'm happy to say that this is starting to happen. So one of the things I would like to see is more research done. And in the early days, you saw a few sort of scattered papers here or there. But for example, Cambridge University is actually funding a 5-year study on sociological aspects of conspiracy theories or alternative theories. Okay, so we're going somewhere. And I want to see an emergence of an alternative media. I want to see basically a media that can challenge this. I mean, these guys, it's early days, and they're not very professional, but they're going in the right direction. It's something I think, the alternative media can help with the AT community and vice versa. So that's the end.